Running 101.
Running 101.
Running 101.
Hello, I'm Nads, and welcome to another episode of Running 101. Once again, wishing everyone well. Been giving some advice left, right, and center here and there, as well as what you might have been getting off the our podcast episodes. But along with staying hydrated, which is something that I've been talking about regularly, just make sure it's quite key to have a balanced, if not a reasonable, intake of both protein and carbs along the way. A lack of which can really play a part in how you're feeling, leading to feeling quite fatigued. Just some advice there. And obviously, it's off the back of what I might have previously gone through. As always, a quick update from me. So I'm in my training block for Berlin Marathon, which is just pretty much just a month away now. The excitement and the nerves are kicking in. So yeah, that's it's a week 11 for me right now. The running commenced last week. Week 9, pretty much didn't do any running that week. I was away, so just planned to focus on stretching and strength and conditioning workouts. Something I just thought I'd trial in the middle of my training block. So let's see if it pays off in the end. Moving on, today's guest has been running for the last 4 years, having started in 2021. With focus, dedication, and pace, they've taken part in key running events from 10Ks all the way to marathons. Based on my experience, you will usually see them mostly before a run, hardly during, and sometimes at the end if you're able to keep up. Larry, welcome to Running 101.
Assalamu alaikum. Thank you for having me.
Long Islam, how's it going? How are things?
Alhamdulillah, yeah, all good, all good. Just busy training at the moment.
Yeah.
Training sort of like entering its sort of peak weeks, you could say. And given the time of year, obviously looking forward to the start of the autumn sort of like races as well. So yeah, they are coming up thick and fast. So yeah, everything's all
I was
good.
actually just going to ask, since you mentioned the time of year that we're in right now, how does the summer training block or training period or running in general in this time of year, summer, how do you take that on?
To be honest, I think the physical aspect of training has been okay for me.
Yeah.
Even with the conditions, we've had a fairly decent spell of weather. So that's been absolutely fine. My only my only thing with this time of year is just trying to balance the training when it comes to like everyday life as well. That's one thing that I have found a bit difficult, I could say, to sort of like balance. It's my first marathon training block over the course of the summer. This time last year, I did a smaller training block for the big half. So it was like half marathon training, but the mileage that you do for a half marathon training block compared to a marathon training block, they're two different, two very, very different plans. So I think it's more just sort of just balancing life and the training that I found a bit more difficult. Sort of like summer's always been a bit of a natural sort of like busy period for anyone in their life, really. And
Yeah,
that's it,
true.
you got people are a bit more sociable because of the weather. You have like weddings and, you know, social dues going up. Everyone's up for like meeting friends, family wise as well. You'll have like, family get-togethers. So yeah, it's a bit difficult to sort of like just try and manage everything.
Before we go into your actual training and what you're working on right now, what you have been training for so far, tell us a bit about yourself.
My name's Larry, but my actual name is Mohammed. Everyone calls me Larry. I think it just sort of like just sticks and it's just cottons on really, and that's it. I have been, as you previously mentioned, I've been running for the last nearly 4 years. Started off, sort of like just doing weekly park runs, and then naturally just the more, you become invested in something, the more you do more of it. So that's just naturally progressed from park runs to 5Ks, 10Ks, halves, and then now alhamdulillah marathons as well. And this year went a bit further into an ultra marathon as well. So yeah, that's that on a running aspect. On a professional aspect, I work for a Big Four bank within project management. So that's yeah, been keeping me going in my current role for like the last 10 years. So alhamdulillah, yeah, all good in that instance as well.
How do you balance the running and your professional like work life together? And does one help the other?
Yeah, it does. Yeah, it does. Like I think on a there's two ways of sort of like explaining it. On a work-life balance, since COVID, I've been working from home predominantly, so that helps massively with the running. Um, being able to like fit in the running, you could say, like during the day. I'm a early riser, so that helps massively. And then,
Good
I
stuff.
can sort of, you can if you schedule a run in the morning, but you can't make it, you don't need to wait till the end of the day, if that makes sense. Working from home, so that goes hand in hand with it. And on the flip side of that, I think running has helped me become more focused, sort of like within my role as well. It's helped me sort of like has helped me focus a lot, just generally in life as well. And it's excelled really on a professional front as well, to be fair.
That's really interesting to know. And the good thing is that one complements the other, so it helps you go a long way. Well, I'll come back to the early rising bit because that's something I really struggle with, and I'm sure I'm not alone there. But kudos to you for starters for being the early riser, because I know getting that first run out of the way, regardless of what distance it is, it just helps you get on with the rest of the day and other priorities that you might have in place, right?
Yeah, definitely, definitely. I think it's just yeah, it can depend on the individual. That's what like some people just they can't do morning runs and they prefer running in the evenings, which is it comes hand in hand with individuals, I think. I've played around with different times of the day, but mornings work absolutely fine for me.
Just going to quickly ask you, because we are talking about like starting early. Are you do you have a fasted run in the morning, or is there like a meal that you have before?
So I would say at least about 95% of my runs are fasted.
Hmm.
Um, um, the only time where the only couple of times I would say that it's not been fasted is basically if I've got like a long marathon training run, for example. So anything, yeah, so like anything going to the distances of like 18 to 20 miles. It's more advisable to obviously, fuel yourself. So I would get up a bit early, have a bit of a light breakfast. Um, and then yeah, sort of like let the food digest and then get out. And obviously, I suppose like fueling strategy is obviously what works for yourself. But yeah, for me, something I'd say light, a bagel with peanut butter, that works for me. With some water and an espresso in the morning. But yeah, and then the other side of that is I've taken part in training during our blessed month of La Ramadan as
Of
well. So
course, of course.
as the time of year is getting sort of like towards the early part of the year where the days are a bit shorter, obviously waking up in the morning, again, being an early riser, even during the month of Ramadan, I still prefer to go out in the morning or out during the time when I'm fasting. So yeah, that's another time waking up for suhoor, having your food, fueling, and then maybe waiting an hour and a half after, and then getting out for a run again.
I think we've gone a bit further, but let's rewind it back into how did it all start for you?
Yeah, I'd say in terms of like the running journey from back in 2021, started off with attending my local park run.
Hmm.
I just took part in the local park run because a friend's wife was working for a mental health charity, needed some volunteers to sort of like raise awareness and run the park run really. So I was like, well, it's a good opportunity to sort of like get out around the corner, it's free. So yeah, so got out, did my first park run. Um, thoroughly enjoyed, I think, the camaraderie around it. I think just the whole, running, getting out. It's not a race or anything. It's just sort of like just people, just I think just I think for me, what it was is just I just enjoyed everything about the whole vibe of ParkRun, and that sort of got me going every week
Were you a bit
thereafter.
surprised? I mean, it being your
I
first park run, were you a bit surprised when you got there?
I was very surprised with the way how it was organized. You know, people actually giving their time as volunteers to, sort of like set up like, events like this. I'd heard of parkrun before, never sort of like been invested in it, just only ever heard of it. And sort of like just seeing it with my own eyes, you sort of like get taken aback by it. And it's like, wow, this is like quite a thing. And I think it just resonated with me that the fact that if again going back to me waking up early, because I'm majority of my life I've been an early riser anyway, but for me my thinking was, well, if I could do it on one Saturday, then I could do it on another. And it's just a way of
Hmm.
getting out. It's a nice start to the weekend, and from there it's just evolved like throughout the years, like taking part in like park runs and stuff. But yeah, that's where it's all started for me really, and then I think naturally just hand in hand it just sort of like just takes off from there.
Following on from that, like, how did you keep that going? Did you stay consistent with the park runs going forward?
Yeah, I'd say my parkrun participation had increased for a period. There were times that obviously other things like other parts of life, sort of like takes over, at the
Sure, sure.
weekend. But I'd say about 9 months in after my first park run, I started taking part run a lot more seriously, in
Mm.
terms of like attending or making an effort to attend.
All right, so
And
you made
it
it part of your regular routine.
yeah, literally, yeah. And now it's like, for example, if I go somewhere for the weekend, like go visit family, or if I'm away, to another city for like a weekend trip, or going up to like the Lake District, for example, for a hike or something like that, um, parkrun will be on the agenda, if that,
Mm, that's
so
the first thing you
yeah.
check if they're where it is, where you have to get to, and everything like that.
Yeah, literally. Yeah, I'll always factor in sort of time for a park run in the morning. It's a great start time, 9 o'clock. So you know it just works well.
Um, Obviously, you mentioned park run, and you did briefly touch on the camaraderie that you felt when you first took part in the park run over there too. So, any key running clubs that you're affiliated with right now?
Yeah, so I am part of a local running club called West End Runners. They're like a
Cool.
affiliated running club. But then I am part of like different communities as well,
Mm.
like running community groups, you could say. So there's our local one here in Leicester, a group widely known, or maybe widely known as Runners of the Dean. So there's
Nice.
quite a large group of us now, compared to where it was even before I was a part of it. I think
Mm.
that's progressed massively for the community here, around Leicester, and sort of like even outside of Leicester as well when it comes to Runners of the Dean. Another community, as me and you are both a part of, is Muslim Runners.
Yep, of course.
Another great platform, has opened up, a massive amount of opportunity and like knowledge as well.
Yeah,
So
and similarly grown as well over the years.
it
I
has,
mean,
yeah, it
I can only
has,
compare
yeah.
to the time when I started, which wasn't too long ago.
Yeah, I think it's just going from strength to strength, and
Hmm.
there's just no stopping at the moment, and it's fantastic. Like it's honestly, it's amazing.
Yeah, and it's all to do with the inspiration that it's kind of passing on and sharing within the community, as well as touching base with other communities too, right? So it's good to know that whatever we're all trying to be a part of, just get that message out, and just sharing our experience, our journeys is definitely giving other people an opportunity to, like get out there themselves and give it a go.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that's the amazing part of like being a part of a community or like a running club as well.
Hmm.
We're all on like different journeys, and as
Yep.
we progress, there's people that are going to start off on their journeys compared to like where me and you may have been like 2, 3 years ago. So we can obviously pass on that knowledge as well. And like within communities such as like Muslim runners and runners of the Dean, as well as like running clubs as well, like like my local running club. You have that platform, and you have that opportunity to like provide or give advice and discuss like different things regarding running. And yeah, I think it's quite something, this running boom that we're in right now as well. So yeah.
Yeah, no, having gone to a few of the run clubs recently, the run clubs, pretty much what they're doing is not just sharing that inspiration, but also advising people. It can become your regular go-to where you go on a weekly basis to not just network with others and get some advice on how you should take things to the next level. So yeah, no, the networking is a huge part of the running, and I would advise anyone to get out there and become or be a part of that community.
Just wanted to add as well, like social media is like a big driver as well, and a lot of these like run clubs will sort of like share a lot of their like schedule on social media, which is really good, on that aspect as well, for like people to get into really.
What I would like to go further into is like understanding your first marathon, which was in 2024, right?
Yes, it was. Yes, I was grateful to be given the opportunity to run London Marathon 2024. So yeah, that was quite a journey. Going back to like where I was back then, it was like a step into the unknown, you could say. Compared to previous year, where I just sort of like tapped into the other distances, you could say. So I think the year before I may have run a couple of like 10Ks, and I remember like 2 half marathons, and then you're making that jump to a marathon, which is a different ball game altogether. And like it was my first ever time, you could say, following a structured sort of like training plan as well.
Had you followed a training plan for the halves at all, or you just
No,
random
it's
like you
just
were running the 10Ks before that?
yeah, like I think it was just sort of like in the saying it in the best way, sort of like you wing half of it, and then you sort of like seek advice, or you get advice from like others, and see what it is that you can do, and just sort of like you like me, I just sort of like mashed up a plan in my head in order to like this is what I need to do for a half marathon. Never thought about trying to obtain a half marathon plan, because I never had that, I never had that knowledge. Like, like I didn't know that maybe training plans were like available, like maybe online, or, you can go to, you can go to someone like a coach or something.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, you know,
Or
um,
like you mentioned, just not even knowing that there is something like a training plan that you can
that's it. Yeah,
adapt to
literally.
and like work with on a regular basis.
Literally, yeah, that's it. I think if there was one thing that I could take away from like not following a plan before, was when you speak to people, they always sort of like maintain like like some of the things that they say to me about their running week is, there's like a interval speed session that they do. They do like an easy run, a steady run, and a long run. Or like they maybe made like run 3 or 4 times a week. So I had that in my head, and that's what I did, for that. But then going forward, sorry, to the London Marathon 2024, being given like a training plan, and you just learn so much, like how different runs are structured, and how your week is structured as well, how you build up. Um, yeah, it was a major learning curve, major learning curve.
Did
Yeah.
did you did you go to any particular apps, or did you work on formulating your plan yourself based on like research and stuff?
So I again, the knowledge of apps as well. I didn't have that when
Mm.
I first got given the news that I was going to be running London Marathon. So the only thing that that was sort of like said was, you can obtain like a free training plan. And Ben Parks. So
Hmm.
Ben Parks is is a running YouTuber, and he offers like different levels of training plans, but a free like level 1 training plan on his website. So I sort of like looked at that. But then being from Leicester, I am blessed, you could say, to have like quite a running community sort of like around us.
Yeah.
And I did reach out to one of the runners here, widely known as Quack. His name's Mubarak. So I was fortunate enough to have him sort of like, write up a plan for me. We
Nice.
we discussed, like obviously uh the running aspect of things, like so he obviously went through this is what it entails. You might maybe running 4 or 5 times a week. These are the sessions. My training block was 16 weeks because I had like a bit of a base level of fitness.
Sure.
So he was able to, advise that a 16-week block would be absolutely fine for me, and explained that, the first block or the first part of the training would be just building up, and then you have sort of like a recovery. Then the next stage is like, you're increasing volume. Then it's a bit of like a deload recovery week again, and then the next stage would be like the peak part of the training, and then you sort of like start, winding down a bit, widely known as like a taper period. Again, massive amount of knowledge that I'd never ever heard of before. So,
All
fortunate
new
enough
new
to,
terminology, new
yeah,
words.
literally, yeah, and bless Quack, like he must have been like, I gotta give it to him. He has a lot of patience. He was answering a lot of questions from like, from me. Like, I'd say, going back to that plan, I believe it was like 4 or 5 runs a week, and different sessions, or like, different paces, you could say. And I'd be in his ear just asking him, like, how should I do this, how should I do this, how should I do that, even though it was just there. But again, major learning curves, major learning
Amazing.
curves.
No, it's you touch base with one of the best sources that we're aware of, being from the Muslim Runners Network. So no, well done on that. And so carrying that plan out, suppose you've gone through it, you're on your taper phase, and your marathon approaching. How was that for you?
I will say the truth, I was grateful for the taper period. Just because, again, like it's like what I said, first time trying, following a plan like this, and
Yep. Yeah.
you put some physical demands on your body that, alhamdulillah, I was
Absolutely.
absolutely fine, in terms of like no injuries or no niggles or anything. But you, it's the knowledge that you sort of like gain from it. And yeah, and then like the week of the marathon, was, was an experience as well. So yeah.
How was it? How was it on the day for you? So based on that, all the knowledge that you took away, learned about yourself along the way too, and obviously not just the um, physical learning, but adapting that to the regular spiritual learning around the month as well. How was it on the day of the marathon for you? Tell us all about that.
Yeah, so the day itself, like I was well rested, fully prepped in terms of like food, diet, everything. Yeah, I was focused. I did have a time in mind. And I think I didn't treat the marathon, that particular my maiden marathon, I didn't treat it with the respect that I should have. Um, I thought I might be able to like just treat it as like a half marathon as well, not knowing what I would be experiencing, if that makes sense. So whilst everything was absolutely fine, the training and everything was absolutely fine, I think I look back on like my made a marathon, and I did go out a bit too fast. I think I just got sucked in to like the whole race atmosphere and like the crowds and everything, and
And
um,
everyone else running, well, seems to
literally,
be
yeah,
running
literally,
faster and
yeah,
ahead
that's
of you
it.
and stuff. Yeah.
And the marathon itself, like, it's a different beast in terms of like the run itself, anyway. But with London, you've got people from the crowd, because I had my name printed on my top. So you've got all these like random like people like shouting, "Go on, Larry, go on, Larry, go on, Larry." And I'm like, who's this? Who's that? But it sort of like gives you the boost to go like to go further and faster.
Were you actually
You
looking
know,
for someone called Larry around you, left, right, and centre first, right? And then
it
you
could have been,
realise
it
that
could
they're
have been.
talking about you.
You see, it's again, sort of like one of those things that you've never sort of like experienced before. Like I had previously, ran, big events, but nothing to the scale of like London Marathon. But yeah, that helped massively as well. But I think it was just sort of like personal choices made on the marathon. Um, in summary, the marathon was amazing, but I ran uh I ran the 2/3 of it perfectly. Then injury hit, and then I just struggled. I didn't make sort of like the time that I wanted. Um, Personally, I think I was like disappointed with myself, but I think
Mhm.
I was overcome with the fact that I was able to, achieve running a marathon, if that made sense.
Of course, absolutely.
Yeah, and that was like a major achievement in itself.
What was your time for your first one?
So I aim for a sub 3 hours 10 minutes. I eventually clocked in at 3 hours 15, which was like over 5 minutes over. Um,
I think you're
but
being
yeah.
too hard on yourself. Because for
Um,
not just the first timer, but going for a sub 3 for a first time as well.
mm,
That's just amazing. And the time you've got is something to be not well surprising for everyone else, and you should give yourself a pat on the back for that too.
Thank you, thank you. I did eventually give myself a pat on the
You
back later
did.
on that day. Later on that day, after like much convincing, but looking back on it, it's like I said, it's a great sort of like experience,
Yeah,
anyway, of
yeah.
running a
I
marathon
think we
in
go
that
through a
way.
range of emotions, right? Once we're done,
Oh,
like the first thing
definitely.
is, okay, what was my time? Then you start
Yeah,
thinking, wait, I actually completed a marathon today. And then you start looking at, wait, my time wasn't that bad either. I mean, it was my first marathon. And then it hits you that you've actually done really well.
that's it. Yeah,
Mm.
definitely.
And I think that
I,
happens regardless of what your time is on the day, right? I mean, to be honest, everyone's got everyone's got their priorities. Some are going for
yeah,
pace, some are going. I mean, everyone does the distance. So,
yeah.
firstly, hats off to them for doing that distance, right?
Yeah, I think what also helps with that is, when you finish or like on the verge of finishing, when you're seeing everyone around you like running and everyone's, going for that same achievement of like completing the marathon, I think that just sort of like overrides everything afterwards. And I think for me as well, like seeing people that I shared the journey with at the end of the
Yep.
marathon. So yeah, once we were done from the marathon, sort of like we had like a meetup point, and seeing like certain individuals and the embraces you could say, and they're talking about like the marathon and the upbeat nature of everything. It was absolutely fantastic, and it sort of like eliminates the doubts that you had, or like the like for me personally, like the disappointment of like not hitting my time, it just sort of like eliminated that afterwards. So that helped massively as
Yeah.
well.
Obviously, you mentioned that an injury struck at one point. So, if you were to, you would blame for not getting your time. Is that right?
If you spoke to me sort of like back in 2024, I think I would have solely blamed the injury. Looking back on it now, I think there's a whole variety of things. In anyone's running journey, you sort of like learn a lot about pacing, learn a lot about different paces, or like, uh, going out too fast, going a bit slow. I think for me, it was just more sort of like there were a couple of things, mainly personal choice about going out too fast. And then obviously part of it is injury as well. But then I think that was impacted on the fact that I may have run to a point where I'd never experienced before, if that made sense. And then you sort of like a lot of strain on the body. So, it's sort of uncharted territory again in that aspect. So now that I can look back on it, I'll just be like, well, I should never have done that. But back then, you know, you don't think of that. I think I've just learned about that as my running journey has sort of like progressed over the years, really, to be fair. So yeah.
Going back to pace, 'cause something that's one thing that comes to mind when I have come across, like, looking at any runs that you've done or touching base with you, whether that be face to face or offline too. I think that's based on habit, isn't it? Because basically when you do target a 5K, a 10K, that's the first thing that you focus on, right? Your pace is maybe your most important asset, wouldn't you say? And then you need to learn to control that or harness that yourself when you're targeting a half marathon or a marathon going forward.
Yeah, you're totally right in that instance. Approaching, different distances adjust your your strategy, you could say, um, going forward with that pace. With a marathon, you can't just go out all guns blazing. It's not a sprint, it's a marathon. So it's just that notion really. So yeah, I think what it is that you learn, about different paces and another thing with like marathons as well is just sort of like the time that people spend on their feet, regardless of whatever time they complete a marathon in. And that's a major factor as well.
Obviously, like that was London Marathon 2024. How did you target your training and the approach to 2025? Obviously, 24 was a learning experience for you. So
Yeah, it
coming back the
was.
second time round,
Yeah.
how were you able to tweak that to your advantage?
So there were quite a few changes. I wanted to redeem myself. I wanted to do much better than what I did the previous year, and then I think the level of fitness that I carried over throughout the course of the year 2024 after the maiden marathon changed a lot of the targets, you could say. And again, fortunate enough to have spoken to Quack, and he was able to provide me with a training plan which was a bit more vigorous, increased mileage, um, increased running as well. So compared to the 2024 plan, I was running 5 times a week. 2025 was 6 times a week, maybe seven in certain weeks as well. So yeah, so when I mean like increased mileage as well, so like I'll pick out a peak week. So my peak week for the London 2024 plan was 55 miles, I believe, compared to 2025, my peak week was 70 miles. So I changed my target for, finishing the marathon to like a sub 3 compared to the previous year, which was a sub 3:10. I felt as though that I could push on a bit further. So yeah, that increased massively. A winter training block helps massively as well. A lot of my sort of like higher mileage weeks were during the course of like Ramadan as well. So
Nice.
yeah, so that was quite something. It helped. I think spiritually being focused on yourself. It massive like benefited massively. It was a different sort of like different journey compared to the year before, I could say. So yeah.
Yeah, no, during Ramadan, I was in the same training block as you. Wouldn't say I was running like 6 to 7 days a week. I was definitely not doing that. But yeah, no, I trialed doing the later hours of the day first, and I just felt like that was just not doing me any good. And then I shifted to actually going out for a run and carrying out my training block during the hours of the day prior to opening hour fast and stuff. So that helped me. It's good to see how you were able to not just work with the experience from 24, but elaborate and take it up to the next level for 25. And your time for 25. Did you get your sub 3?
I didn't get my sub 3, no. Injury didn't strike again this year.
Mm.
I clipped another runner, and I fell, like sort of like scraped my knee. I didn't feel it straight away. I just sort of like rolled over, got back up, and carried on running. Maybe about 3 or 4 miles later, I started, finding myself slowing down a bit. Looked down at my knee, and it's just like full of blood. I was like, what is going on
Oh
here?
man.
When you're running at a pace, I think, you just sort of like just forget about everything and you're just going for something and then that's it. I think like it was just the momentum that just kept
The
me going,
adrenaline
sort of,
rush, right?
yeah, adrenaline and stuff. But yeah, tending to my knee after, I had to stop. I had to like clean myself up because my leg was like sort of like partially covered with a lot of blood. And then getting back into it again, I just never ever recovered. Never ever recovered the pace. And again, the conditions on that day, widely known. We had a beautiful day. but it wasn't
Good for
beautiful for us
spectators.
runners. Yeah, that's it. It wasn't beautiful for us runners. So, yeah, it was a it was a tough day in the office in terms of conditions on the day as well. I did manage to better my time from the year before.
Mhm.
So I managed to PB, and yeah, that was the main thing really. Like I wanted to like obviously like better myself from the year before. Managed to get
Mm.
that done, and I was very happy and satisfied with the performance, even though, there's certain aspects of something that you can never control. And
Yeah.
fortunately for me, that was one of them.
And I think that's a very positive outlook to take away from that. Those are the things that you need to count your blessings on and focus on when you walk away from a marathon. The good parts about it, right? You just take that, turn that into your next journey, the next thing that you're going to pick up, and it's just that energy that you need, the positive energy, which will then drive you further. To, I mean, what could you do if you clip someone that was just unfortunate? But hey, whatever happened happened for a reason, and yeah, we go again, don't we?
Yeah, definitely. Again, it's out of your control, but yeah, I think it's just like what you just touched on. It's just the way how you look back at it, if that makes sense.
Hmm.
The positive outlook. I think for me, completing the marathon was the main priority. Crossing that finish line was the best feeling.
Yeah, no. So Larry, good, really good to hear about your journey for your first marathon and how you progressed to better your London Marathon 2025. Obviously, starting off from a park run yourself, putting some time into your 10Ks, half marathons prior to going into marathon running. It would be good to see and understand if anyone approached you today to get some advice in terms of how to get started and where best to start. What would you advise?
I would advise, there's different avenues to, starting up. What I would mainly advise is, like a park run, because that's something that's personal to me. Um, Also, there is Couch to 5K as well. Um, and also sort of like them getting out themselves, sort of like getting running themselves, just to like just sort of like just take it slow and steady really. In that aspect. I think when you do take part in any of those sort of like avenues, that comes hand in hand with reaching like, or like gaining access to the running community. And then obviously from there, um as a sort of like person that's starting out running, you'd be able to sort of like get advice, within like the community, you could say. Parkrun is another form of like a community as well, where a lot of people share their running journeys and the advice that they can provide. Um, Also, like when it comes to like running, I would also advise a form of like, sort of like strength and conditioning as well. Strength training will help
Mhm.
massively when it comes to running. I feel as though that like, when you do strengthen certain muscles, that are required, if you help strengthen them.
But support and stability required, right?
Yeah, yeah. To be fair, and it'll be seamless in that instance.
Oh, good stuff. Good advice. Good point mentioned over there. Any challenges and obstacles you faced? I mean, you mentioned the injuries during the marathon, of course, but apart from that,
In terms of like, challenges, I think with any form of like physical sport, injuries can be, play a massive part in it. Unfortunately, I was struck down with like an IT band injury. Yeah, so that was quite an obstacle to sort of like overcome. Because I was sort of like just getting into the rhythm of like, increasing like the running aspect of my
mm.
journey at that particular time. And all I wanted to do was just get out and run a bit more in order to, further myself.
Was this before
So
marathons or during?
yeah, this was before the marathon. This was like back in 2023.
Hmm.
I think just transitioning from my park run journey sort of like to all the other distances.
Good to touch base on the injuries, of course. How long were you out for?
I was out for a period of about 3 weeks, I
Mm.
believe. Um,
What was
yeah,
going through
three
your mind for
weeks.
those 3 weeks?
Yeah. A flurry of things really, to be fair. The verse was like, oh, will I ever be able to run again?
Sure, sure.
That was one of the
That's
things.
probably the first thing
But
that
I think
crosses our minds, right?
Yeah, I think like obviously being restricted as well, like played a- played a lot on my mind. But then yeah, I was able to seek advice from like the running community, you could say. They were able to sort of like point me in like the right direction. Got me in touch with like a physio. Um, was able to like sort of like get seen to, and then just followed the advice in terms of like doing certain stretches. Strength training had increased slightly just to help strengthen the muscles, you could say. Um, and yeah, like mobility exercises help massively as well in that instance. And then obviously getting back into running after, I was advised not to go all guns blazing. I think that's had I not sought that advice, I may have done that and may have aggravated sort of like an injury again. But the advice was to just sort of like slow and steady, get back into it. Sort of like one, maybe two runs a week, start off with, and then gradually increase your volume.
Goes back to kind of day one a little bit, right?
It does,
Touch base
yeah.
with your foundations again, I guess.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, it does. I think I think for me on a personal level, it was a very ego thing that I didn't want to do that. But then, I sort of like had to say to myself that, you need to build yourself back up. And looking back on it now, it was quite enjoyable just to sort of like go back to that sort of like period because, you can relate to it
Hmm.
again, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with that. I mean, recently, like I mentioned, went to one or two run clubs recently. At one particular one, before we actually started running or did any running at all, they were coaching us on our breathing patterns. And that was like, whoa, this takes you right back to the very beginning. But it was a good reminder on touching base with those initial activities that you need to adapt and you need to
Hmm.
work with. So obviously, like speaking offline, we've obviously covered a lot about park runs today. You've run the ASICS 10K, Vitality 10K, 10Ks as well as the half marathon in Leicester as well, of course. Not like you had a choice, you had to do that, right? But the big half last year, are you coming back for the big half this year, 2025?
Yes, yes, I am. Yeah. The big half. So I've done big half twice. I did it back in 23
Mm,
and
nice.
24. So it's a very enjoyable one. That yeah, I have to come back for. And let's just hope that the conditions aren't like last year. To
Oh
be
yeah,
fair, because
absolutely
last year
remember
was a
that.
very
I
warm
mean,
day, wasn't it?
yeah, London Marathon this year reminded me a lot of the big half last year too. So totally agree with you
Yeah.
on that. Let's look at what you're currently what you're training for right now. I mean, you touched on it in the beginning, but I wanted to save it for later. So,
So currently I'm right bang in the middle of training for the Chicago Marathon, which will take place in October. So I am in week 8 at the moment of my 15-week training block. It's been a training of like, a mixed bag, you could say. I've enjoyed every aspect of it. I think it's just sort of like going back to you know, juggling everything, you could say. But
yeah, yeah,
but yeah, no, that is currently what I'm training for at the moment. I think the enjoyable part of this training block is taking into account the autumn races as well. So the big half being one of them. That's in a couple of weeks.
yeah. Before we conclude, Larry, one thing that I've been asking, and it would be good to see what your take is on this, is what is your why? What do you get from running that it's kept going, not just over the last 4 years, but will continue going in the future too. So, what is your why?
My why for running, there's various different ways of sort of like touching on that particular word, you could say. Like for me, on an individual aspect, it's helped me massively, physically, mentally. Uh, it's given me a lot of drive, you could say, for my running. I think as the running journey has sort of like gone over the last couple of years, I've learned a lot about myself, and I want to keep learning about myself. And another aspect of it would be uh, my why in terms of sharing that particular knowledge and the journey, you could say, with like other runners. Running is quite something because it always sort of like helps you network with fellow runners or other people from different walks of life. And you can share sort of like experiences, you can share stories. So that would be sort of like my why.
Larry, I'm going to say thank you so much for your time, for putting some time aside and coming on Running 101. It was really good to hear about your journey so far and the future plans as well. So all the best with that going forward. It will be good to catch you on around Wembley later on this weekend actually, should I say. But yeah, no, all the best with everything. Take care and we'll catch you soon sometime. Hopefully after Chicago, maybe, you never know.
Again, yeah, thank you very much for having me.
Good stuff. Thank you, everyone. Look after yourselves once again, and hopefully we'll catch you on another episode of Running 101.